CS on Air in association with Women Tech Makers. This is the latest in a series of informal interviews with females working in engineering at Google to find out what motivated them to pursue a career in computer science and what excites them about the field today. Today we're lucky to be chatting to Ellie Powers, who's a product manager in our London office. My name is Alison and I'm in Zurich, and also joining us is Lynette, also in London. So Ellie, thanks for joining the Hangout. Maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit about your career and the kind of things you work on at Google.
Sure. So I've been working as a product manager at a whole variety of different companies. It's sort of a new, it was a new area when I first started in the field, but now, you know, most companies have what they either call product managers, program managers, or something like that. And those are people who work on trying to figure out what's the right product to ship to the customers. And then they work with engineers, marketing people, sales people, designers, testers, and a whole other range of functions to deliver really the right product to the customers. So the sort of things I work on at Google is, you know, as probably most of you out there know, mobile technology is getting to be huge, and the whole area of apps is absolutely gigantic. And you know, everyone these days has an app, from big companies to people just building something on their own in their garage. And so what I work on is making it easier for developers to publish their apps onto Google Play, where they're getting, you know, huge amounts of downloads every day, and they're able to share their applications with hundreds of millions of people around the world.
Cool. And how did you come to get into product management? What was the path? Because I know you said you studied computer science, so.
Right. Well, I guess back when I was in high school, you know, for me, the internet was just starting to get big at that time. You know, people were starting to have web pages, businesses were starting to have web pages, and a group of my friends and I decided our school's web page was, you know, it just wasn't cutting it. It was one gray web page that was about 18 screens long with a gigantic scroll bar, and we thought, well, this isn't very useful. You know, we thought that the students and the teachers at the school could certainly build something much better, and that we wanted to use that as an opportunity to learn more about how to build websites. So we actually started building a very technologically advanced, for the time, website. We had a database backend. We had a really great user interface. And that was something where I thought,
wow. You didn't have a mobile site though, right?
No, at that time I had a cell phone where all it had was numbers. It was very boring. I mean, this was quite a while ago. But I think the idea was there that we thought, okay, cool, we built something that's really cool. And then only later, when I was applying to university, did I realize, oh, this could kind of be like a career. I remember I had to look at a list of possible fields to apply to, and I thought, well, I like science, and I like psychology, and I like social science, and I've been taking Japanese for a long time. But, you know, I'm going to have to narrow it down a little bit. And then I thought, oh, with my free time, with my friends, I've already been doing essentially computer science for a couple of years. And I had taken a few computer science classes in my school. And I thought, actually, this is what I choose to do with my free time. Maybe this is what I should choose for a career. And at that time, I wasn't exactly sure, you know, what sort of thing I would do in the world of technology. But I thought, this is something that's really going places. You know, I want to be part of determining what the future is going to be like. So I decided to study computer science in university.
Cool. And so you talked a little bit early on about, you know, as a product manager, you work with, you know, a bunch of other teams and things. But kind of, it can be really hard to sort of visualize what a job is like if you haven't done it. Can you describe an average day?
Sure. So, you know, a big part of being a product manager is to figure out who are your users, who do you want your users to be, and what do they think of your current product. So a typical day, I'll go in, I'll look at all the feedback from our users about the website that people use to manage their apps on Google Play. I'll spend about, you know, maybe 10 to 30 minutes reading all of their comments, figuring out if there's a trend to them. You know, are people complaining about a certain area? Have we released a certain feature and it's not working properly? Or maybe people are asking for a new type of functionality or want to do something different that our website currently doesn't support. So then I'll take some of the findings from that and sit down with the engineers who sit about, you know, 3 feet away from me and say, hey guys, this is what's happened today. You know, we'll decide which bugs we need to fix. You know, we'll sort of decide which feedback to put aside for later. Then I'll start working about some of my longer term planning. We're always shipping new functionality on our website. We ship a new version to our users about once a week. And sometimes it just has a few little tweaks that are different, and sometimes we're launching something major and new or even a whole new version. So I'll work on some of the new features that I have coming up. So this will mean talking to the engineers to figure out, okay, where are we, what have we agreed on the design yet? If we're not, then we'll all sit together and I'll say, well, this is how I really want things to work for the user. We'll have our user experience designer. She'll share her thoughts about new designs that you have for exactly what each page should look like. I'll talk about the larger business goals. For example, we want to get really high quality applications on Google Play, so how can we encourage that? And then the engineers will contribute their thoughts about how they think it should work and how we can build the most efficient architecture to achieve that. So I guess that's kind of sitting around and talking with people in a room, throwing around different ideas, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing. And what I like about that is you get to understand each role's different insights. The designer might have different insights than the engineer, and I might have different insights from a business perspective or from user feedback. And then we need to reach an agreement about how to move forward. Then in the afternoon, a big part of being a product manager is about, as you mentioned, collaborating with other teams. Here in London, we work with a lot of the other offices of Google, and a lot of my colleagues are in California. So I'll spend some time in the evenings talking about, here's what our team's doing, or working with other groups in California on group projects. We might be doing a new piece of functionality that combines information from several different parts of Google. And that's sort of my typical day. So one of the things I think is really fun actually about working here is we basically have hangouts with each other. And thanks to this really cool technology, you can actually meet sort of face-to-face with people who are thousands of miles away from you. Sometimes we talk with people in the China offices as well, or in Paris. There are always different conversations going on. I think another great thing about the technology industry is it's really all about collaboration with people all over the world. If you're building a new software product or a new mobile product, your users are going to be everywhere. And so that idea that I could have a change with it, which is then affecting hundreds of millions of people all over the world who I might never get to meet, but I can still affect them in some way and improve their lives, I thought that possibility was really interesting.
Cool, thank you.
Wow, great. Thanks, Ellie. And are there any sort of projects or products that you've worked on that you look back on particularly fondly, either at Google or before Google? And what made them so great?
I guess my first project after finishing university was when I worked on Hotmail. And at the time, Gmail had launched earlier in the year, and Hotmail had hundreds of millions of users. But they said, okay, the space has really changed. At that time, there were inboxes that had only 2 megabytes of storage, which is, at this point, really funny to think about. And Gmail had just launched inboxes with 1 gigabyte and a whole new user interface and a new way of thinking about email, with conversations rather than individual messages. And, it was exciting to get to think that we were going to take Hotmail, which already had hundreds of millions of users, and figure out how do we rebuild this product in a totally new way. As people are using, even at that time back in 2004, mobile phones with text messaging. They were starting to use social networks and other sorts of ways of communicating. We thought, okay, we're going to throw away what we have and we're going to build something totally new. But at the same time, we had a really huge user base. So some people liked it exactly how it was and didn't want it to change. Other people were really looking for something new and improved. So working with a team back then to say, how do we re-envision an existing product? It was really a big challenge. So that was a very interesting experience. It took a couple of years to fully redo, and the team, I've since left the team, but it's really interesting to see how that space has continued to evolve as people are spending more time on social networks and doing more things from their mobile phones. And those trends we saw even now 9 years ago are just continuing to grow and develop.
Cool. You mentioned that sort of one of the things you did at school was help redesign the school's website. Was that the very first thing you did, or did you get into computing even earlier? And if so, what was the hook that got you into it?
Well, my father actually was a programmer. He was an electrical engineer, and he did some programming as well. And so I think I must have been maybe as early as 12 or possibly even a bit younger. And he brought me a textbook of programming in C. And so I remember the hardest thing was just setting up the environment where you could even start to run programs. You know, they would show you just a little snippet of code, and you'd go, well, that's easy enough. And, you know, but then once you got your whole compiler set up and you run Hello World for the first time, and you think, wow, that's really cool. I made something print out. That's amazing. That was really exciting. And then also back in the day, there was something called HyperCard. Kind of old as well, but it was kind of a neat thing where you could sort of build your own, like, I guess you could almost jump to different pages in a book you could think of, or have different cases where you could build a computer program but using very high-level tools. So you could, you know, try to make a simple game or kind of an animated storybook or things like that. So that was something where I thought, well, this is really cool, sort of rather than just using the computer, actually making something happen on the computer. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Cool. And what's the most amazing thing you've seen created by computer science up till now? And what do you look forward to seeing in the future?
I guess one of the most amazing things I've ever seen is just the transformation in how people used to get information. You know, when I think about, and this, you know, for people who are, you know, in high school right now or in university, maybe they don't even remember this, but it used to be that the limit of what you could know was defined by what you could memorize. You know, so what's the capital of this country or that country? If you didn't know it, you would have to go to the library and look it up. Now you can just pull your phone out of your pocket, you know, jump on Google, type it in, bam, there it is. And so this idea that I can know almost anything, or that if there's almost any question that I have in the world, I can get an answer to it right now. I mean, that's a completely new concept, and now I love also the fact that that's almost taken for granted today. Why shouldn't I have information, access to all of the world's information, even if I'm living, you know, in a certain place? Why does that have to determine that anyone can get access to all the information? I think the biggest hope I have for technology is how to deal with medical and healthcare. You know, we've seen how fast computer technology has changed. You know, if we look back 20 years ago, everything that you could know was defined by what you had in the books in front of you and maybe a couple of friends you could call on the phone. You know, now you have Google, now you have Facebook. You can ask much larger groups or, you know, websites these questions. That's changed so quickly. And I think when you think about healthcare, you know, you think, has it changed that quickly? You know, we used to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars for a very, very slow, boring computer. Maybe it even had a black and white screen. 20 or 30 years later, you spend a fraction of that money for, you know, an amazing tablet or an amazing mobile phone that does so much more. You know, maybe we could think about how to apply these new advances or the same sort of innovative thinking to medical care or the administration of health care. And so if you think about how we can make sure that all of the billions of people in the world can not only connect to the internet through their mobile phones, but how can they get better health care? Maybe using some of these same tools could really revolutionize that. And hopefully in 20 years' time, the idea that, you know, if you're living in a certain area, you can't get affordable health care, or that the health care costs are overwhelming people's economies, that should be, I hope, almost difficult for people to imagine. You know, the idea that you can get simple and easy to use health care or insights into how your health is doing and how to optimize it, I think that would be really wonderful. So I really look forward to the next generation of entrepreneurs who are going to bring those ideas into the market and really see what they can do. And a great part of that will be experimentation as well. I think we've seen with the internet that as you make it easier and cheaper to build a website or a mobile app, a lot more people give it a try. And it's been really cool to see one of the old friends I have from my group of friends in high school that built the website for our school. He's actually had started a whole company to build mobile apps to help people optimize their health. And so that's just one example. And so I really look forward to seeing what people do next. You know, how can they really decide to use that sort of computing power, mobile devices, and just the idea that we can quickly make things better to apply it to improving human health.
Yeah. That's cool, actually. I remember seeing stories of mobile apps and stuff designed for people like in Africa, you know, like it's sort of diagnostic tools almost, and things. So it's actually like really adding to it there too. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think one of the coolest apps I heard about recently was an app that was given to traditional midwives, I believe in Kenya, And so one of the things that commonly happens is, people don't have babies in hospitals all the time. They often have them at home, and they have traditional midwives who are able to, provide a certain level of care. And then if things go really, really wrong, you need to have real medical intervention. So they actually developed an app that would help traditional midwives assess whether a woman who was in labor and giving birth actually needed to go into a hospital. And then if she did, you could actually, from the app, call a taxi service to come and bring the woman quickly to the hospital. And they estimate it's saved hundreds of lives at this point.
Wow,
and
that's
something that's, in terms of the technology that's there, it's actually a pretty simple app. But if you think of the impact that it has on the world, it's enormous.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. Hundreds of women who might have died in childbirth are now surviving. Their babies are surviving, and as this type of thing continues to spread, potentially the idea that everyone can have access to medical care in a relatively low cost and easy way, it seems much more of a realistic dream.
Yeah, that's cool. So what's your advice for someone at school today who's thinking that computer science might be for them and but not sure if it's something they'd be good at and enjoy doing?
Yeah, I think one thing that was interesting to me was, so I grew up in Silicon Valley and was surrounded by the internet bubble while I was in high school. But then when I went to university, I went to school with people who were from all parts of the world, all parts of the United States, as well as other countries. And many of them, they had never programmed before. They had never even considered it. And many of them wrote their first line of code when we were first-year students in university. So I guess what I would say is, even if you've never tried programming before, you should just try it out. There was a video that's been forwarded around a lot on the internet from code.org talking about how being able to code is a superpower, and I would definitely agree with that. If you think that the world is going to be made out of and determined by computers, why not understand a little bit that you can build stuff, you can make stuff. The internet and mobile devices aren't just about consuming other people's information or using other people's tools, but you can write your own tools and start with something really simple. So, I'm sure that you have an app in mind that you can't find in the store, and you go, well, why don't I just sit down and try to make it? And I did that myself earlier last year, and it was kind of fun. I wanted to have a little app that would let me graph how often I went for a bicycle ride. And it was just silly, but I thought, well, this is fun. I've never built an Android app before. Let me just give it a try. And so I spent one weekend and got everything running. And I actually, the engineers on my team were really impressed because, here I am, the product manager. I don't typically code as part of my job, but here I had written an application, something that none of them had actually done before. And so they're like, that's cool. And so now whenever we talk about publishing applications, my application that I wrote on my weekend on my free time, that was the first application that we published with the new version of our website. So I guess what I would say is, think of something that you wish you could have. Maybe it's a website or an app or something like that. Think about how you can build it. You can start out by drawing it on a piece of paper. You don't have to get more complicated than that. Definitely try programming, whether that's at school or there's a lot of websites that you can try, like Code Academy, to learn how. And the other thing I would definitely say is, having a degree in computer science opens doors. It opens tons of doors, even doors you wouldn't know about. When I was going into university and signed up to study computer science, I had never heard of a product manager. I thought, I don't necessarily know if I want to be a software engineer forever, but that's fine. And so I tried it out, and later I learned about what a product manager was, and I thought, wow, that's really cool, I'll give it a try. And so I've been doing it for the past 10 years. So I think I would say if you have those basic skills and you have a basic understanding of technology, it'll open doors to you that you can't even imagine years down the road. So it's a wonderful field and growing really, really fast. And there's lots of opportunity.
Great, thanks very much, Ellie. And I'm glad you mentioned Code.org there, who have just launched globally. We're big fans of them. And what they're actually doing at the moment is building a map of computer science education opportunities all over the world. So anybody who's running a program or a class can submit onto the map, with the end goal that any child can, or teacher can take a look at a map and think, see what's near me, what's in my town, and what's just down the road. I want to learn to code. So as I say, we're big fans and supporting them. Thanks very much for all your enthusiasm and your insight into careers in computer science there. We're going to be back next week, next Thursday, with a final interview in the series, which is one of the engineers who works on the driverless car. In the meantime, this interview is being held on youtube.com/edu@Google, and you can find details of all other sessions on the Education on Air website. So thanks again, Ellie. Thanks very much, Lynette, for joining us, and have a nice afternoon, everyone.